Eddy was too busy reflecting on the memory to answer. You're leaving? Eddy remembered asking when he was 5. Yep, Mom and Dad wanted me to go out and see the world. What about me? Who's gonna teach me to be the best scam converter, like you? Don't get your hopes up, Pipsqueak. You're never going to be like me. You're a loser, and that's what you always will be. Eddy broke inside, but then his brother bent down to him. Here, take this jar. If you fill it up to the top, by the time I get back, maybe I'll change my mind. Remember, the only way to get it right is to get it wrong. He hadn't changed. Eddy never meant a thing to his brother. He'd just been faking his way through life for nothing. What was he going to tell his friends? He couldn't lie anymore. That's what he's been doing this whole life. I made it all up, Double D. Everything about my brother was a lie, he said, removing Ed's hand from his shoulder. His friends looked at him in horror. I just made things up so people would like me, think I was cool. But, boy, was I wrong. The scam? My brother this? Tears fell from his eyes, not just from the lie he made about his life, but because of his friends. He barely acknowledged them as his friends. They stayed by his side all these years, even when forced to do things they wanted no part of. He was surprised how they never felt, but now they had a good reason. When am I going to learn, Double D? Eddy covered his eyes, not wanting anyone to see him cry. His parents kept him apart from his brother for a reason. They didn't want him to figure out that he never meant anything to him. But that's what Eddy was. He was desperate for attention, going as far as making himself look like an idiot. He was so stupid. What a waste of a life. Eddy's hands were gently taken away by Ed. I think you just have, Eddy, he said to him with a kind smile. He did? Oh, that's what he was trying to learn. He learned that he hadn't been learning anything through the false advice and lessons from his brother. Eddy smiled through the tears. He learned that his friends were really his friends. True friends would never abandon one another during their time of need. You guys are the best. You're both more brothers to me than he ever was. The Eds all stared happily at one another. They felt closer than they ever did before. They didn't have to worry any more because they could continue on. Subtly, the kids threw Eddy into the air, cheering for him. Ed and Ed were dumbfounded. What happened to the attack? Ed slipped and fell on his rear end. Before he could get up, Sarah gathered her brother into a big hug. When she looked into that horrible man's eyes, she saw what she may have become when she got older. There was no way to treat Ed the way she did, not when he put her needs before his. Let Rolf rub the pit of victory, Ed boy! Rolf exclaimed, rubbing a confused Eddy. I'm so glad you're okay, dude! Naz wrapped Eddy in a hug and surprised the boy with a big kiss. You're awesome! I am? I gotta admit, pal, that was such a choice, Kevin said, patting Eddy on the back. It was? Eddy burst with joy. The kids stood around, congratulating the Eds, while the cankers circled around Eddy's brother's unconscious body. Some deadbeat this guy turned out to be, Lee said, seeing how he fell weak all because of a door. He doesn't look so tough, said Marie. Each canker grabbed a limb and dragged the man into the house. They were going to make this revenge a fun experience. The kids' happiness came to a halt when a city bus came screeching to a stop, only a few feet away from them. Your time of reckoning ends now, rapscallions! Johnny rushed out from the bus and charged toward the Eds. It's Melon time! Where did he come from? Eddy screamed. Johnny, wait! Johnny scooped up each Ed and threw them into a pile. He jumped on them and perched himself on top of them. No thanks are necessary, citizens. You idiot! That wasn't the reaction he was expecting. Sarah pummeled him to the ground. Leave our friends alone! Back off, Melon Dweeb! Leave some produce for Ralph! All the kids joined in on the beating of Johnny, while the Eds lay bewildered on the ground. Were they really defending them? All because he hurt the Eds? Jimmy helped Ed up to his feet, while Kevin appeared from behind the dust cloud. Sorry about that. Say, let's go to my place. Jawbreakers are on me. The Eds almost fainted from the excitement. Was this really happening? They were finally accepting them as friends of their own? Eddy wrapped his arms around Ed. Ed returned the hug. He'd been avoiding Ed's hugs for years. And it was time he changed his ways. The kids lifted the Eds into the air. We did it, Double D! Eddy rejoiced as they broke into a dance. Everyone loves us! We're finally in, baby! And it only took 130 episodes, 4 specials, and a movie, Eddy, Ed pointed out. Let's sing a song! Ed yelled out. The kids ran, singing out from the amusement park. Ed looked over to see Eddy singing. Maybe finding his brother was a good thing. If they didn't, he would have learned what he'd been trying to learn for the past 8 years. Everything still wasn't completely back to normal, but Eddy knew that when they were exiting the park, he was welcoming into his new life. This is your craziest plan ever, Plank. We'll show them. We'll show them all. What's that? They did, didn't they? Yes. The goody-goody two-shoe days of Captain Melonhead and Splinter have come to an end, and out of the darkness will rise the villainous days of the Gourd and his evil cohort, Ember, the Dark Shard. Together, we will extract revenge on the entire cul-de-sac! What? There's no time left? It's the end of the story? What story?